Hello there, and welcome to my new Necromancer guide for the Dark Culture with a splash of Eldritch. So, Eldritch Sovereigns are really good at necromancing, and so is the Dark Culture. We're going to combine both things in a monstrosity that is really good at controlling the enemy without spending too many resources into support. I really like this part of this build. Let's get started with the cultural and racial things. So I started out with resistant, tough, and adaptable. The thing is, most of our undead creatures won't get the racial traits anyways, so I vouched for something that keeps my backline alive, because our racial units will be either spears, dark knights, or necromancers, or mages. All of these really enjoy just a slap on the base stats to make them more resilient. And the last one, the all-present adaptable, that is just, in my opinion, the best one-point trait in the current patch. So, culture-wise, I went for powerful evokers to keep our combat casting going, because that is really important for us. It also gives us a battle mage to start with, and gifted casters to make exactly that combat casting even cheaper. You can go for other combinations there, but this is one hell of a mana-hungry faction, and I'd really recommend to do something about that end in your cultural traits. However you do it, it is really a lot about mana, and battlefield casting. Anyways, so this is what we're working with, and I just want to lose a quick word here about the current meta of the Dark Culture. Hold a Weak is inflicting weakness if you are using a ranged unit, and inflicting extra damage and a healing if you're using a melee unit. We are putting this trait on all of our units, namely also on the undead, which is going to be the main backbone of our sustain and resilience. By the way, if you struggle with resilience and sustain in this build, feel free to adapt here in this sector a little bit. But I tried it out on hard difficulty and I found it a breeze to play with this one. So, tomes. We are starting out, obviously, with the Tome of Necromancy, as we are a Necromancer faction, and we get a lot of goodness out of that. Soul Collection to kickstart our soul income, Necrotic Magic to make our supporters and battle mages inflict decay, which is one hell of a nasty condition, as it never expires, and it counters regeneration. We got Necrotize, a really nice nuke that makes the enemy turn into a zombie when they die. We got Necromancers, or supporters. Well, they're mostly, yeah, they are supporters, but they are no healers in that regard. But ultimately, they will do a lot of heavy lifting in our build. And Rotting Explosion to make your zombies or skeletons go boom and become a dirty bomb. This skill is damage-wise on the medium side, but the decay that you inflict on a 2-hex radius is really amazing, and it is really nice last greeting from a zombie that would die this turn anyways. Skeleton Reanimation allows you to resurrect the enemies that are fallen in the battle and fills up your ranks early on. Really good stuff. Mind you that the stuff that you reanimate, though, is all manner of different races, and this is where you stop to have a reliable influx of racial traits. But you get the enemy ones, so if you kill overpowered enemies, you retain their abilities too. Unholy Leader is, in my humble opinion, a must-have on all of your heroes, as it is a novice skill, and eventually all of your armies will turn undead. Soul Wells give you a steady income of souls and extra mana, not bad at that, and that's that. Second book, Tentacle. We go here, and as with all the Eldritch builds that I'm running these days, Constricting Focus is one of the mainstays that we are after. We want to amplify our battle mages with this stuff, as it makes the enemy immobilized, suffer from damage over time, and our battle mages and supporters are a really big part of our army, as you see. The best part about that is these guys can still apply the weakness, as we are no longer relying on the archers to apply weakness if you are coming from the old version of the darks. That's pretty cool. Tendril Labyrinths gives us a extra income and city stability, never a bad thing. Constrictors are a nice add-on to your racial spears. They pretty much replace your racial spears, except for the fact that the racial tier 2 spears of the darks grind enemy resistances, and these here provide utility. Conjure Tentacle is your Swiss Army knife of battlefield summons. Put it down where somebody needs to get stopped, and put this spell on all of your heroes' plays, as it is stupidly powerful. Now, in the tier 2 section, we obviously go for the Tome of Souls next. Obviously, we want the Corrupt Soul. As soon as you can summon these, spam them. They are relatively costly, but in terms of upkeep, but not in summoning costs. Getting the souls together is the easiest part. Getting the tower and the mana upkeep, not so much. But you get a really powerful fighter unit that packs out a really nice punch, grinds down the enemy morale, and allows you to insta-kill people that are on low morale, or at least give them a 30-point frost damage nuke. So versatile. Bone Horrors come for free. If you kill stuff, you get tier 3 shock units. Basically, these guys are entirely replacing your Dark Knights, sort of. You still can't train Dark Knights, but you get these basically for free. So that's a pretty nifty thing. And Soul Overflow is our status cleanser, as we can heal and strengthen and cleanse debuffs with that. And Soul Binders is just the next level of annoyance on your battle mages and supporters, as now we have a chance of making everybody we're smacking with our ranged attackers a zombie, and 20% more damage. And believe me, at that point, even your necromancers start to hit quite substantially. I like that. Soul Collector is the same thing as Soul Binders for your heroes. I do like to put this on them as well. The other tier 2 I picked up was Tome of Summoning, because we need to get ourselves some sort of support into the build, and Tome of Summoning provides. Conjure Astral Keeper is a battlefield summon that you can just put out, and you have an instant healer that you can also burst to get yourself some AoE heal, which is really, really nice. So you get a 25-point healing if you need to smash them, and in any other scenario they act like any other of your battle mages with their attacks. Decent damage, low costs, really, really good payoff. Ignore the Astral Serpent, as this is not really the part that we want in this book. We want Arcane Restoration to get a battlefield-wide heal on our undead units. It's a really, really nifty thing. And Arcane Supercharge has so many means to be used all the way down the road. An Arcane Bond gives us an option to dominate the enemy's magic origin units. This is pretty nifty too. Add some Astral Wisps into the mix that also inherit all the nasty unit enchantments that we got. These are stupidly powerful little tier 1 critters. Anyways, tier 3, we want to go for the Great Transformation, obviously. Head for Whiteborn, as this is really where we want to get towards to, because the Lifesteal stacks with Call the Weak. Call the Weak is a different effect than Lifesteal, so they act independently next to each other. And this is where you have all the support you need. If you need more, I strongly recommend to use your heroes in this build. Pick up hero skills, but this is pretty much all you require. So you get yourself also access to Bone Dragons, so whenever you now slay tier 5 units, you get some nice payoff for that as well. But don't expect too much from them. They're nifty, but they're also very costly, and, well, I like to use them as throwaway products, as they don't really put too much of an effort on my side, except for some souls. Fetid Legion, amazing spell, as now our entire front line gets to apply their weakness themselves. They are now autonomous from that other problem, and therefore this is a really, really nice thing. Also plus 10 HP, what's not to like about that? So, Domain of Death, really, really nice for your cities, and Desecrate Structure gives you a nice extra soul income. Alright, so the other tier 3 that we're going to pick up is obviously Corruption, as we are still an Eldritch build. Corruption is such a nice add-on to everything we already do. Gloomstrider upgrades our backline into some serious resilience. Curse Eater lets them shake off negative status effects very easily. They become floating and fast, so their battlefield movement benefits a lot from that. We lose our mount and leg equipment slots on our heroes, which is a little bit sucky, but everything comes with a price. Umbral Incursion allows us to nuke the enemy's territory, and the Throne of Insidious Whispers is amazing, as we can't have too much mana with this build. Seriously, you will find a way to spend it all. And Corrupted Boon is a nice buff stripper, which is pretty nice because our build does not have too many amplifiers in terms of damage, so everything that strips the enemy's strengths off of them is really, really good for us. And, well, Corrupted Treacherous Reflection, I'm very mixed about that. Pick up the Umbral Mistresses. They are costly, but they allow you to soften up whatever you need, spread more insanity, and they're generally really nice frontliners. They're really more a melee unit in disguise to me personally, as they can suck out a tremendous amount of HP of the enemy, and yeah, they're fun. They're really, really fun troops. Boon stealing for your heroes, and from that point on, well, it is all very easy. It is, as you see, a very, very shadow-heavy build, and we obviously head down the road with a Reaper and Oblivion and Eternal Lord. Honorable mention goes in this entire process here into the option of picking up the Tome of Feymists. This is a very viable alternative to the Tome of Summoning, as you gain Staves of Mist, which allows your Necromancers to give you a low amount of healing, but the Clinging Mist is a nice defensive tool, and the other spells here have all the quality that it makes your troops harder to kill. Really nice stuff. The Feywater Pond is also another mana producing thing. I really like that one, as it provides a nice amount of healing, and we can use this practically as good as the Summoning Tome. Generally, feel free to experiment switching this one out, as I personally see it pretty much as a band-aid fix to get the necessary healing in that we do need in between. You could also go, if you don't mind the breach of concept there, fertility would work as well. So yeah, knock yourself out, let me know what you think. So let's talk roster. We got ourselves a really interesting roster in the tier 2 section, but the tier 1 section is really, well, negligible. The thing is, everything that the Dark Warriors can do is good for us. One or two of them don't hurt until you have access to the Dark Knights or Bone Horrors, but then they get absolutely, well, obsolete. Same goes for the Pursuers. They are our first ranged attackers that give us the ability to apply weakening, but as soon as we have access to the Warlocks, we can basically ditch them entirely. So really, don't invest too hard into Pursuers, as our main focus lies on supporters and battle mages and not at all on archers. So that means our economy wants to really have the skeleton summoning as quick as possible and the tier 2 town hall as quick as possible, so we can ignore that pesky tier 1 roster. On the tier 2 side of things, though, life is a lot better. You can and will utilize the Necromancers a lot. They have a decent ranged attack, but their Raise Undead skill is their really main attraction. When you have Whiteborn running, your people are all undead, and that means you can revive everybody. Losing units becomes very hard from that point on. They also have Strengthened Unit as a semi-free action. They need to have one action point, but they can do afterwards whatever they please. And as you see there, movement improvement and damage improvement basically is a free thing. Love that. Raise Undead is a once per battle thing, though. Keep that in mind. You can also use it to raise the enemy's fallen and turn them into a problem for the enemy. These are so versatile units. Night Guards are one side of the middle. They have, like I said, the Dark Stalwart effect, which grinds down defenses of the enemy if they stand next to them. Alternatively, you can use Constrictors, which have the Immobilization and Pull effect. I have a very hard time deciding which ones I'd prefer more, but In the long run, I think the Night Guards are better for this build as they soften up the enemy's defenses, and our strategy needs that a lot, since, like I said, we almost have no amplifiers in terms of damage on our front line. Speaking about that, in comes the Warlock. The Warlock has a decent ranged attack, but it's also featuring a always hitting 6 range nuke that strips the enemy's defenses and weakens them. So whenever you have trouble killing something, send the Warlocks, if necessary twice, and then I think everything becomes killable eventually. These guys are extremely important, and together with the Necromancer should be the main backbone of your army. Seriously, you should have something around 5 to 6 Warlocks and 4 Necromancers, or something between these lines, because these are so gosh darn versatile people. Dark Knights are pretty cool, but costly. So in general, if you have a lot of gold available but not mana, they become a very, very attractive alternative to Bone Horrors, as their attacks are really nice and they have an AoE. On the counter side, the Bone Horrors are much harder to kill, so choose to your own liking. The rest of your setup will consist out of various forms of skeletons. Skip the skeleton archers altogether, as they really don't do much for your build. Focus on mages, polearms, and shields, but always keep in mind that these guys are only ought to be replaced eventually with some tier 2, tier 3, or tier 3 troops. Try to get your main core of troops eventually down to tier 2s, and only fill in a couple of skeletons as throwaway troops for your rotting explosion and such. Your Eldritch Ruler can utilize Necromancy stupidly well with Thrall effigy. You can transform 30 souls into 3 Thralls, and 4 Thralls go into 200 knowledge, or 1 Thrall goes into drafting or scouting. You can do so many things with that. You have basically an endless source of Thralls, and world map casting points are therefore a very valuable resource for any Eldritch Ruler. When it comes down to your heroes, these are very important for your build. Skill them with Mass Rejuvenation whenever you can get it. This is very desirable because at the end of the day, every smidge of extra healing we get makes us more powerful, because this build does not waste any slots with defensive units. They're basically all offensive units, and therefore your heroes should fill in the blanks there. I pick up therefore restore for all of my heroes, and if you can, or you should always pick up Manifest Tentacle alongside with a couple of other nice things. I find Inspiring Leader also a very, very nice thing, as it lowers the mana costs for many things. With the rest of your Eldritch setup, well, it is very, very easy to utilize your Sovereign in many different ways to keep control on the battlefield, and I strongly recommend to go for the Fleshweaver spec, as Possession allows you to give a unit Resurgence and a 40% damage bonus for 2 turns, and you also gain self-killing fleshlings that are one-time use bombs that have status vulnerability on their explosion. Very, very valuable stuff. So this path goes very decently into this build, as we can power up our units, and yeah, that's that. Altogether, you have a very potent power curve spread out on the battlefield. Build as many cities as possible, and use those souls to crank out knowledge to get your knowledge going as quick as possible, or drafting troops, or whatever you prefer. What I personally found the biggest problem I had was generating enough mana for this build. So this is really something where you need to keep an eye out on. And apart from that, enjoy yourself. Drop me your comments down below, leave me a thumbs up, consider subscribing, check out the description box, there's plenty of links to go around, and feel free to support the channel via Patreon, PayPal, buy me a coffee, channel membership, whatever you please. And of course, a big thanks to all of you who do so, and a big thanks to you for watching this video up until the very end. Enjoy.